Live. All right. I think we're live. Yep. Okay. We're live.
All right. Awesome.
So, okay. So Megan's going to jump on and join us any minute now. Thank you to everybody for coming on here and joining us tonight. I'm just going to fix my camera a little bit here. Okay. So, I'm going to introduce you to two awesome people who I have connected with over this very somber topic, but yet we're going to hopefully bring some positivity and some light to it tonight. And so a couple of housekeeping, if you want to call it, things, but if you're watching this, please give us some hearts. Hearts are really awesome in Facebook algorithms right now. So if you give us some hearts, it means more people are going to see this. And if you can write #live in the comments, that's awesome too. Also means more people are going to see us tonight. And if you come back and you watch this, you can come back anytime and you can watch this on my Facebook page, on Scott's Facebook page, or on Megan's when she jumps on here. And if you do come back and you watch, please just write a #replay as well, because again, that means it's more likely that some people are going to see this in their newsfeed, and hopefully we'll reach more people who need to see this talk that we're having tonight. So Megan is not quite here yet, but I just want to say to you, Scott, thank you for being here tonight. It's so heartwarming and validating, and I mean, there's so many words that I can use for it, to know that telling my story resonated with you and to have you reach out to me, especially because you and I are in slightly different professional spheres, and we're going to talk more about this, but it really does mean a lot to me. And so Megan will be joining us shortly. She is a pediatrician in Tennessee, and I met her through a Facebook group called Empowering Women Physicians, which is led by Dr. Sunny Smith, and she is doing some absolutely extraordinary work that has changed both my life and Megan's life. And so she'll jump on and talk about this briefly when she can. And then Scott, he is a veterinarian in Gananoque, and he and I know each other from a long time past. We decided before we jumped on here that it's probably about 10 or 12 years ago that he and I last spoke. But we share a love of the outdoors, especially the outdoors in Ontario. And so it's been fun to connect with you again, to sort of build each other up and bring each other some hope and reach out and help some people who need this, and also to just chat about fun outdoor exploration briefly. So I just want to share really briefly with you guys what my why is for doing this talk. And, you know, I was thinking about this beforehand, about why I reached out to you guys and was motivated to do this. And I think it comes down to three things for me. So one is really, I lived a life where I experienced so much shame and so much guilt about my struggles for a long time. And for me, like, this is the number one way. When I was thinking about what to call this talk tonight, I was like, let's smash the stigma, right? I mean, I really want to create a safe space to have these kind of conversations. And so that is why I'm here. That's my main reason for being here. The other two things, oh, here comes Megan. I'm just going to bring her in to join us. Here she comes, I think. Oh, here we go. Hey, there we go. Megan. Yeah, thank you for being here. And so, yeah, so my other two reasons were I really wanted to be able to listen to the stories of other professionals, and to create a safe space where we could all have these kind of conversations. And so that's kind of my reason for bringing this talk to you here tonight. And then, you know, my third thing is that I hope that we can share some hope with people who need this and who need these resources. So I'm just going to open really quickly with a quote from Brene Brown. I love Brene Brown. She's amazing. And she says, "Shame cannot survive being spoken. It cannot tolerate having words wrapped around it. What it craves is secrecy, silence, and judgment." And when I think about those words, I think about how much I lived through And so much of that was cloaked in that secrecy and shame. And it takes a lot of courage for me. I'm by nature an introverted and shy person, and it takes a lot of courage for me to be here and share this story with all of you. But I know that in doing that, that the shame will not survive. And so that is my why. That is why I'm here. And I would really love to turn it over to Scott or Meagan, if you guys are willing to share a bit about your why and why you're here tonight and you agreed to do this crazy thing with me.
I'm happy to start if you're okay with that. So for me, you know, I've been watching, and I can't thank you enough, Anna, for putting this out there and taking that huge step and being so courageous and brave and sharing that. Because what it did is I was recounting this to you a bit earlier, that what I saw was you posting these things over time that really grabbed my attention. It took a little while, and then all of a sudden I was like, wait, I think there's something more going on here. And I finally found your blog post where you talked about your story, and just so many things that you wrote. I was like, that is exactly how I felt. And, you know, it resonated so much, and I read it last Thursday night, and I reached out to you last Friday night, and here we are a week later, doing this, and it's pretty incredible, and I'm inspired by you and both of you for sharing, and I've listened to your podcast, Meagan, and I just it's amazing, and we went through such similar things at similar times, and so my why would very much be that in veterinary medicine, and quite frankly, in all walks of life, when I've started opening up about this, I realized that this is a pretty widely shared experience, as unfortunate as that is. But what I don't feel negatively about that. I feel hope, and I feel every time we talk about it, it doesn't bring me down to hear other people that have struggled. What I hear is how they've overcome that, and the things that we have been able to do to better our lives and take control of our lives. And my why would be that our profession in veterinary medicine has just an astronomically high suicide rate. It is not just veterinarians; it is everybody in the veterinary field. And it's something that we're trying to figure out how to deal with. And as you and I have talked about, this is the way that we open the door, and we continue to take away that stigma and allow other people in. And I realized that even though I was sharing this with people in the right situations, then I was having an impact there. But I realized that it was within my profession, and actually very just the people that I was immediately in contact with. And when you shared yours, I realized that whoa, I'm kind of not doing everything I could here. And then I reached out to you, and then this happened, and then I shared my story last night on my Facebook, and as you said, it blew up. I was completely overwhelmed in the most amazing way to just hear everything that all the messages and the texts and the emails and the just everything. The support is just unbelievable. And I said this, I said it in my post last night. I'm better healed than I was broken. And that only been reaffirmed today with everything that's happened in the last 24 hours. So, I mean, I'm happy to share a little bit of my story as well, but Meagan, maybe we could go with your why, and then we can get into that.
Sure. Well, Anna, thank you so much for having us, and I think this is a really important work, and I'm really excited that you had the idea. My why is really similar, that I felt so alone, and I felt weak, and people who go into our professions aren't prone to telling anyone about struggles that we're having, and you're always going to be the best, and many times you are the best, and then you just see everyone else succeeding, so you think that you should, and that it should be fine. And under the surface, you're just sinking and slipping further and further and withdrawing into yourself more and more. And you think, I am the only one. Everybody else looks great. And so I must be horrible at this. And I must be dumber than everybody else. And I must be weaker than everybody else. And something's wrong with me that I'm not doing as good as them. And so my why is because people need to not feel alone anymore. Sometimes I feel like an imposter, or like I feel like I'm like trying to get attention or something by sharing this story. And I realize that that's just because of voices from my past or voices in my head that told me I was a drama queen or told me this and that and the other, suck it up. My dad's favorite saying in life is anybody can hold their breath. So he would just say, just hold your breath. Just hold your breath for this long. Then hold your breath for this long. And so I would do it. I'll be like, okay, I'm just going to hold my breath. Until I realized, I was like, well, you can't hold your breath for forever or you'll die. And I found myself in that place. And I mean, much like you all. And I didn't want to really tell anyone because I felt like nobody else must be thinking this way. Because from the outside, I look like I've got life good. Like, I've got a good paycheck and a good job, and the other people at this practice seem to like it fine. And I've got kids that I love and a house that's great. I mean, I've got all the things. A stay-at-home dad, husband. I mean, who has that? But it was awful. And so I thought, okay, I'm not going to tell anybody because I'm just being a drama queen. And to the point that I almost didn't even believe that I was really suicidal until I started telling the story to people. And then I was like, holy crap, that really happened. Like, I really did sit and tell my husband, wait a day to admit me to inpatient psych so I could try to figure out something to save my life. And when that clicked, that was real and that wasn't me being dramatic and that I do have reasons to be unhappy and unhealthy, that I'm not the only one, then I started just kind of telling the story, but I would kind of leave out the acuity of it. I would like kind of dance around it like I wasn't happy or, And then I started sharing the more times I said that, the more times I was like, wait, maybe I should actually tell like what really happened. And then I would tell that. And then people were like, you're not alone. This is how a lot of people feel. And then I was like, well, hold up. I should have just said this from the beginning. And then the more times I told it, the braver I was to tell it again. And the braver I got and the braver I got. And so then I was just like, broadcasting it to bunches of people and like a lot of people and always got positive feedback from it. And so my why of continuing to tell the story is in hopes that same thing would happen to someone else, which is that somebody else might feel that way and be really nervous and scared to share their story, but they hear me share my story and then they get brave. And then that's what ended up happening with you. And then I was like, oh my gosh, this is insane. Like I just cried and I was so happy. And like all those little voices in the back of my head saying you're just a drama queen just went away. I was like, no, I'm like doing the work that's needed. And it was so happy. I was just so happy. And I mean, that's what we're all here for, is that we all wanted to heal and help and like be of service to others in the world. And when you feel like you have been, it's like no other feeling in the whole world, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's very emotional for me to hear you telling that story, Meagan, because it was emotionally powerful for you. And at the same time, it was so powerful for me to be on the receiving end of that in terms of where I was at and owning my own story. So I almost don't even remember exactly when. Like, it was definitely sometime this year when Sunny had posted that podcast, and I had gone through this journey of sitting in this very same office in September of 2019, and I had plotted my own suicide, and I was seconds away from following through on my plans when I had this vision of my daughter's face. And for me, that was like, I want to see her and touch her and hold her one more time before I do this. Like, I can do this any day. This can happen tomorrow. And so I went home, and she was already in bed that night. So I had something to live for that night, which I think was really huge for me. And I decided that night that I didn't want that to be the end of my story. And yet I had been doing therapy, and I'd been seeing physicians, and I had run out of what I felt like I had run out of options. I felt like I was backed into a corner, and I had a lot of big changes in my life in the previous couple of years. I had become a mom. I had returned from mat leave. While I was a mom, I was on quite the journey. I will share my own personal story. I'll share the link to my post in this Facebook feed, rather than reiterating all of it here, because I would really, really like for Scott and Meagan to share their stories. But, you know, I was in such a dark and desperate place. I remember feeling like the walls of this office were closing in on me, like I was stuck in a corner, and I felt like nobody understood me. I felt like my colleagues, I was so isolated in that time. And you know, when I think about that, it's interesting because one of the questions that Scott asked me when we were talking about doing this talk was, he asked me, I had told him that I would never have imagined, after he wrote to me, that his life could have been so similar to mine. And, you know, part of the reason why I really wanted him to come was because he's a vet, he's a male. Like, I could relate to Meagan's story. She was a female physician, right? But for Scott to be going through something so incredibly similar at the same time was so meaningful to me in terms of realizing that how many others could have been walking this exact same walk and experiencing this exact same story. Like, it's uncanny to me that we were all living these lives in parallel around the same time, right? And I just think, I mean, none of us could have been here right now going through this crisis of COVID. And for me, that gives me some days so much hope, right? I'm like, I am grateful that I am here to see COVID. You know, like, this has been a shitstorm in the world, but I am still grateful that I'm here. And part of the reason that I can say that now is because I've developed this new understanding that suffering is part of the human life, and that there wasn't necessarily anything wrong with me on my journey. That, you know, I was looking for the right diagnosis, and I thought, you know, there was something wrong with my brain. I had a bad brain, a negative brain. And what I have come to learn, and what has given me so much hope, is that I have a human brain. And as I've come to understand that, and as I've come to understand that there are negative emotions that are part of our experience in this life, but that we actually have a so much more full life if we live in those negative emotions, when we experience them authentically, than if we try to suppress them and hide them and squash them. And so I think that that's something that you'll hear through all of our stories, is that we have come to a place where we're living our lives from a so much more authentic place. And it is, you know, it's, for me, it has been a revelation for me in starting to share this story, is that I feel like I am stepping into the true version of my life. And that's just been huge for me. So Scott, would you like to share your story?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's just so much that you just said that resonated so much with me. And I think you'll hear, again, that's very similar in a lot of ways. And you know, in my particular case, when you know, you mentioned earlier, you know, guilt and shame, and you know, I think a lot of my feelings at the time were similar. Like as Meagan said, like my life has been amazing. like, I have nothing to complain about. I have, you know, I had a great childhood. I have an amazing family that's been so supportive of me. I've had opportunities that, you know, you couldn't ask for. And then I, you know, I got to the point, and, you know, I've always been a very driven person. I always, you know, was willing to put in the work to get where I wanted to go. And, you know, that has served me very well, obviously, from a standpoint of, go to vet school, go out in the world, buy a practice. And our practice has been quite successful in growing. I have an amazing team here. I have a group of incredible people that surround me that I get to come to work with every day. And I'm so thrilled with that. And yet, for some reason, you know, and I've got this amazing family with 2 young kids, and, you know, my wife is so supportive of me, and yet, like, how can I be miserable? And so, you know, being unhappy with that, and you know, and it was like, I really, and I, you know, I found that I was at, like, the first time in my life where I didn't have a goal. You know, I had always had a goal of, you know, graduate from vet school, you know, go out in the world, get married, have kids, buy a practice, you know, get your practice where you want to. And I found probably about July last year, I kind of had a look around and went, okay, yeah, I did all those things, and now what? And, you know, I realized that I was like, this really isn't that fantastic. I was always looking forward to, like, yeah, no, when I get there, it'll be amazing. And then I was there, and I was like, no, it's kind of, you know, I don't even know what to do now. And then I had this feeling, and you just summed it up so nicely in a live post that you did last weekend, that it was like that unhappiness. It was like, instead of feeling it, and instead of, you know, allowing myself to feel it and be like, why do I feel this way, and really explore it and lean into it. Instead, what I did, it was like this beach ball, like you said, and I just, like, shoved it down under the water. And it was just like, I was just holding it down. And I'm like, nope, you shouldn't feel that, because your life's awesome and you have nothing to complain about. And why do you feel this way? And what is wrong with you that you feel this way? And, you know, the stress is, I mean, anybody who's in any really public and professional job that deals with the public, I mean, you can know that, like, there are amazing stresses there. There, you know, there's the pressure of trying to make sure you did everything right on a case, that, you know, this person was happy with their experience here, that the bill wasn't too high, that it was, you know, in our profession, that's a big thing. And, you know, and I, you know, there's that, you know, grief, you know, presents itself in so many different ways. And so, you know, there are so many opportunities, and you can look at a day, and, you know, you can see, you know, just using a round number of 20 patients, and 19 experiences go amazingly and 1 doesn't. And, you know, that's 95%. And that's pretty awesome in life if you can nail 95% of what you do. And, you know, what do we go home and think about? We think about the 5% that didn't go well. We don't focus on the 95%. And when you do that for long enough, you end up in a place where you're not happy. And that's where I was. And, you know, and the thing was, is that, like, I just kept shoving it off. Like, I just, like, kept pushing that down, and it was never, I never allowed myself to go there. And, you know, you can do that. You can do that. And we all do that in some ways for a while. And eventually it'll catch up with you. And it started, like, so it came to a head for me in October, the first weekend in October, which, like, can't be more than a couple of weeks from when it did for you. And I was at a meeting with these other vet practice owners, and we get to meet every 6 months. And, like, quite honestly, like, they had already saved my life a number of times leading up to that time. And they were basically my, you know, an extended family to me that I felt, you know, had really helped me to navigate owning a practice and things that I didn't learn in vet school. And then I got to the point where that weekend, there had just been so many things that had, you know, that I'd been pushing it down for so long, that I had this point where it had become physical, the attempt to suppress that I had this, like, this band of, like, just, I don't know, it was like pressure right across here. And then I was sitting in these meetings, and, like, I was sweating through my shirt in, like, 5 minutes. Like, and I would, like, at every break, I would go up and change my shirt, and I wore a blazer for the entire weekend just to, like, you know, hide that. And I was like, I don't know what's wrong with me. Like, what is happening? And, you know, I was saying things like, you know, I'm really, and I knew that I was not happy with the way things were going in my practice. And I was kind of looking at it like, how long do I have to do this before I can retire? And, that's not a good thing to be thinking of just a few years after graduation. And, it was getting worse. It wasn't getting better. And so I was saying things that weekend, like, I feel like I'm approaching a crossroads at 150 miles an hour, or, I feel like I've been tunneling through a snowbank, and then I busted it when I owned the 100% of the practice, and now I'm in midair and I don't know what to do next. And I said those things, and I just said them because that's what I was thinking, and I didn't realize until later. And we actually had someone in who was talking about communication that weekend as kind of a discussion, and she said a line, and it broke me. Like, it broke me because it just hit home so hard. That she said that, like, the problem in our profession right now is that when we go out, we struggle, and our new grads go out and they struggle, and the vast majority of vets within their first 5 years out in practice can agree with this statement, that I have lost some of my empathy towards animals. And it just broke me. I still don't know why it broke me, but I had this visceral reaction of, like, and it was this feeling that I was like, I knew I was kind of in a dark place, but it was like, oh no, I am really, really, really deep in this hole. And it just hit me like this tidal wave. And I was like, this is not good. And I all of a sudden I kind of got angry, and anger is probably one of the best descriptions of it. And one of the things was I was mad at myself for letting myself get there, and I felt guilt and shame for being there. And then I also felt angry that no one had noticed. And all of a sudden I realized how much those were cries for help, and that I needed help. And I was like, how could no one notice? And then it dawned on me that I just noticed. Like, I just noticed right now. And so I went to dinner that night, and one of the other members walked up to me and was like, hey, you said a few things this weekend that it just didn't really sound like you. And I just wanted to check in and see if you're okay. And I just looked at him and I said, no, I'm not at all. And he was like, that's not what I expected you to say. And so we talked after that, and another person came up right after that and asked me the same thing, and another person, and I talked with her until 4:30 in the morning that night. And it was raw, and it was ugly, and everything was on the table. And I kind of made a decision that I was going to say something the next morning, and it was the single most terrifying moment of my life to stand up in front of these people, because what I felt was I had a decision. I had two options. I either continue to suffer and hate what I was doing and keep these people in my life because to be a part of this group, I had to own a practice. So I was not enjoying that. So these people have become so important to me that I had to make a decision to keep them in my life or let them go, admit that I was an imposter and really shouldn't have been there because I didn't enjoy owning the practice, and then, have them no longer be a part of my life. And, there was also the fear that I knew was irrational to think that they might go, oh, you are someone that we didn't know. We thought you were someone different, and you're not now, and you're weak, and you're not like us. And I knew that wasn't going to be the case, but it still didn't make it less terrifying. And so I stood up and I said kind of somewhat what I've said right now. And I said at the end, and I remember saying, I don't know where this train goes now, but it's going to keep going. And each one of them came up to me and hugged me and told me they loved me and told me things that I'll never forget. And then we went around that room for the next 4 hours, and that's all we talked about. And we talked about things that we were carrying around, and they weren't all about this, but they were heavy things. And the things that were said in that room will never leave. But they were, it was the single most life-changing moment of my life that, these were the people that in my life I honestly thought had everything figured out. And I realized that they didn't, and neither did I, and that was okay. for the first time in my life, that was okay. And what happened was I realized that I had made the choice to feel that way. I had made the choice not to embrace how I was feeling and not give it credit. I could still be thankful that my life wasn't as hard as other people's, but it didn't mean that I wasn't okay to feel that things were hard, and that things weren't fun. And all of a sudden, I realized three things: that everyone's fighting a battle. Number two is that everyone will walk around and pretend that they're not, even with people that they know pretty well. Like, I felt like I knew those people really well, and what was said blew me away. Like, I had no idea. And number three is that in the right situation, when people share and make it a safe space, that everybody wants to let that load off because it's heavy. And and that is the same part of my why is, what Meagan said too, is that by telling this, and every time I have told this, I have gained more confidence to tell it. And every time I've talked about it, someone has opened up and shared something heavy that they were carrying around right after that. And and you doing this, it was the first time where you had really, since this had happened, where you did that for me. And then I reached out and shared something heavy with you. And it opens the door and it helps share the load. And it brings hope to this. And I left that room not feeling sad that everybody else was feeling things and had heavy things in their lives, but that it was hopeful that we all had overcome those things and figured out ways, and that we could share them, and that was going to make us even better going forward after that. So yeah, that's my story.
I think this piece of shared humanity is so important. I'm reading Untamed by Glennon Doyle, and I'm sure some of the people who are watching this right now, I actually think you should read it, Scott. It's totally written for women, but you're going to love it. So you should just read it. It's even better if you can listen to the audiobook of Glennon reading it. Like, it's freaking awesome, guys. But I just want to read you something really quickly from this. So she's sharing her story of how she basically came to, I think it was her 6th day of sobriety, and she came to a meeting. She was pregnant, and she shared this story about how she just feels awful in ways she'd never felt awful before in her life. And so just that she was just feeling all of the feelings. And so she writes this passage in the book, and it's very powerful. But she says, after the meeting ended, a woman walked over and sat next to me. She said, "Thanks for sharing. I relate. I just want to tell you something that somebody told me in the beginning. It's okay to feel all the stuff you're feeling. You're just becoming human again. You're not doing life wrong. You're doing it right. If there's any secret that you're missing, it's that doing it right is just really hard. Feeling all your feelings is hard, but that's what they're for. Feelings are for feeling, all of them, even the hard ones. The secret is that you're doing it right, and that doing it right hurts sometimes." And I say that because I recognize that there's people who may be watching this here tonight who are in a different place than we are, right? And the thing is I want you to know that if you feel differently when you're hearing these things and you think you're so different from where we are now, that we were there, and there's still a part of us who is there. We are all still that same person. We're changed versions of those people. Yet if we hadn't felt those feelings and walked through that fire, we didn't get here by not feeling those things and by not acknowledging and recognizing that pain, right? We got here because we decided to go down that journey. We decided to embrace that journey. And so I share that really because I want you to know that whatever you're feeling, like what Scott was referring to when I was talking about the beach ball and holding the beach ball under the water, is that I shared that when Scott shared his story with me, I went through this incredibly emotional journey. First, I was like so blown away that I was connecting with people by sharing my own story. And then I found over the course of the day, I was sad. And I thought, like, why am I sad about this? But I realized, like, I just needed to acknowledge the sadness that we have to be here today, sitting here having this conversation. I didn't know that this was going on for veterinarians, I knew about the problem in my own little bubble, right, in medicine. And I actually pulled out some numbers, and like the suicide rate for veterinarians, and like women, in most studies report that women have a higher rate of suicide than men. And the numbers for veterinarians compared to the general public are actually even worse than the numbers for physicians in terms of the risk of death by suicide. And so, you know, I think that's it, right? Is that we all feel so isolated, and I think it's this isolation and the culture of silence, like I talked about at the beginning, that perpetuates the shame and perpetuates us all to stay trapped in this place that we get ourselves into. And it's only when we do this and we reach out, and it's so hard to do when you're in that place. I recognize that, but if you're there, please do reach out. Please do tell your story. You can reach out to any of us. Like, we are willing to listen, and we will connect you with places that you can get help, because you do not need to suffer this alone, especially if you're just first learning how to feel those feelings, because it's intense and it's a big journey. And that's a big thing that as a coach that I teach people how to do, is how to feel those feelings and recognize them and know them, and to start to learn the lessons that they are there to teach us.
For sure. I think that surprises me about the veterinarian numbers. I didn't know. I mean, I knew dentists were high. What comes to mind for me is that we're all healers, and we have an ideal. We have to make this decision when we're 19 and 18. And we're kids, and we start on a journey, and nobody really tells you all the secrets of what's happening. And so then you're like, okay, everything's gonna be great. And Scott mentioned like that prize at the end, like everything's set before you. And if I just do this, and then I do this, and I follow all the rules, and I get straight A's, and I do all the things, then I'll be happy. And then I'll get to be a healer. Then I'll be of service to people. And then you get to the point, and you're 31, 32, 33 years old, and you don't feel like you're really getting to heal people or animals. And then you experience that lack of empathy because you're not getting to do the things on your terms like you thought that you were going to get to do. And not only that, but then people tend to not act as grateful as maybe you thought they would. Not that you went into it for gratefulness, but just, you know, in life, usually if you do something nice for someone, then they say thank you. And then you feel good, and everybody likes that experience. But what healthcare has turned into, and I mean, I can't speak to Canada as much as I can America. In America, it's not turned into that. And your bubbles burst, and things are based on patient satisfaction, and patients want, you know, less time, more stuff, less talk, then some want more talk. I mean, you kind of feel like you can't make anybody happy, and then much less yourself happy. And then you realize, like, okay, I'm just broken. I mean, my spirit is gone. And I think it's from that, like, bubble burst sensation. Like, this is not what I had envisioned for myself. And that's why it can look so great from the outside, where you can technically have all of the things that would make for a great life, but then you don't feel that deep sense of satisfaction. Yeah. And that stuck out to me, Scott, while you were talking, that, you know, you feel like you should be grateful and should be thankful and you should feel good, but you don't. And then Anna, like you said, like your brain feels broken. Like you're like, well, something must be wrong. I mean, I did the same thing and I'd been to psychiatrists, I'd been to therapy, and I just felt like I wasn't getting anywhere. I was like, I can talk for an hour to anyone. What are we doing here? Like, I needed some action steps to get out of my spiraling thoughts. And what happened with me, with my story, was that I had reached that place and was sitting in the bathroom in the shower, just sitting there with the shower coming down on me for however long. I lost track of time. My husband came and found me because I had been gone for so long. And he said, "What's wrong?" And I just said, "Well, I'm just going to go ahead and commit suicide." I mean, it was like a fact. It wasn't even emotional at that point. And he was like, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "Well, the kids are young enough. They won't remember me. You can find someone else. I don't really believe in soulmates. So you can just find the next person. I'm not serving a purpose in the world. So I'm just going to, like, there's no point for me to keep doing this." And he was really concerned, rightfully so. And we talked for a little bit, and I said, "Well, give me one day to find something. And if I can't figure out a plan, then I'd go ahead and admit me to inpatient psych because I just need to be monitored." And that's a crazy place to find yourself in your head as a physician, because you're used to being on the flip side of that. And like, you can see it. It's almost like you're looking down on yourself. So the next day, I didn't even know what else to do. So I just started clicking around on Facebook because I didn't know who else to turn to. And then every time I kept clicking, in Physicians Moms Group, PMG, I kept seeing this name Jess Schaefer come up. And I was like, Jess Schaefer is my husband's cousin. What is this? And I was like, Nathan, what is Jess? Speaking of, he's being my assistant and bringing me water. Thank you.
Great job, Nathan.
So I was like, why is her name all over all of this? And I texted her. I was like, I have her cell phone number. I'm just going to text her. I said, Jess, I really need help. I don't know what to do. And your name is all over Facebook on this. What are you, like? I guess I'm being vulnerable and reaching out to you. I think that's how I worded it. She was like, you need a coach. And that's what I do now. I coach physician women. And I was like, okay, do whatever I need to do. And I think we did our first session within that next few days. And it was just like a lightning bolt. I have never been more excited in my entire life because it was a totally different approach. And it was a plan. It wasn't like, oh, let's just talk out our feelings. For me, talking out my feelings is just the two halves of my brain fighting all the time. And I'm just like, I'm at the back to the beginning where I was. I need an action plan. And, but I don't want someone to make it for me because I have a problem with authority. So don't make the plan for me, but I need a plan. And that's what coaching was. It was just like very actionable steps and goals that I set for myself. And it was just, I mean, within days, I was using completely different language than I had been using 2 days prior to that. And I couldn't even imagine who that person had been anymore. I couldn't even like think of that person that was in the shower and saying that they were going to die. I couldn't relate to her anymore. Jess started joking about that she and her husband were going to Bora Bora in the next month and I should come with them. And I was like, I'm a pediatrician. It's hilarious that you think I have money for Bora Bora. And we laughed about that. And
I brought you Meagan for the humor, by the way. She always makes me laugh.
Yeah. I love comedy, man. Comedy is the best medicine. I'm telling you. Laughter. So then I saw Sunny Smith had posted like a giveaway to Bora Bora. And I was like, well, shoot. Why not? Why not? What's the worst that could happen? I don't win. And so then I was like, I'm just going to share this story on this very public site. And I almost did it like so quickly that I wasn't quite thinking of all the repercussions of like, I wasn't overthinking it.
Yeah.
As we tend to do, right? We tend to overthink it and think of worst case possibility, worst case scenario. People are going to think I'm dumb. People are going to think I'm weak and stupid. People are going to make fun of me. Little goblin on the shoulder saying like, no one else thinks of suicide but you. I didn't even have time to think that. I was like getting my hair dyed. So I was having fun chatting with the girl, writing my little story. And then lo and behold, on my birthday, on my 34th birthday, that night, Sunny messaged like, do I want to go to Bora Bora? And I was like, Nathan, I just want a trip to Bora Bora. And he was like, what? And I was like, legitimately, I just want a trip to Bora Bora. And we just like embraced and cried and hugged under the Christmas tree because we already had it up on November 18th. And it was just, I don't even know. That moment might have been better. I don't know. The trip was amazing. But just that moment, like that weeks ago, I was going to be gone. And then I had hope, not only because other people were so kind and believed in me, but because I believed in myself. And then I like manifested that forward for myself rather than manifesting my destiny of death. Like we're in charge of ourselves. I'd never been taught that. And in my faith life, my dad's a pastor. I mean, we're taught God makes everything happen. And you can pray and like hope that things would be different. But I had never thought of it as truly my thoughts and my actions create my life. And by the time we did that trip in the beginning of December, I mean, then I really internalized that. And that's what you're teaching and coaching is that your thoughts truly determine your trajectory and your path. And like, I mean, it's amazing. And I've started 2 businesses in 5 months since that happened. And I'm happy. Like I am not going to be with my current practice for the rest of the year, but I'm still happy there now. Like I'm not upset about it. It's just not the right fit for me. Whereas, you know, before I was just blaming everyone else and blaming my marriage and blaming my husband's depression and ADHD and just like putting it all out there instead of putting it in here and realizing that I could make a change. Not one change, a daily decision to change and a daily decision to both turn to Jess and for coaching and myself for the, you know, for self-coaching. And the work is so important and needed. And it's a totally new approach to me. And I hope for some that are listening and like, I hope that people hear that hope in our voices, like that it could be you. It is you. We all thought like, no, it could never be me. I'm stuck here. You get in those thought spirals in your mind and it's just me, and your brain feeds you all these thoughts that are just not true. Mine still feed me. Yesterday I had a horrible day and I was worried the whole day about my income and my family being homeless in the streets when I leave my job. Like that's all I could think all day. And I texted my husband, my brain is offering me up thoughts that I don't agree with today. And I'm having a really hard time getting those thoughts out of my brain. And he said, I'm so proud of you just for the way that you're seeing your mind now, that our brains are made to think. I mean, that's a bunch of what Glennon talks about. I love Glennon. And like our bodies are meant to feel and our brains are meant to think, but it doesn't mean that every feeling and thought is you. They don't define you. They're just what your brain is made to do. You're a human being. Your brain was made to give you a bunch of thoughts, and you get to choose which ones you want to agree with and which ones you want to just throw away and not agree with. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm so happy for the work that you all are doing. And it's like, again, like meds, therapy, blah, blah, blah. Great. Those have a place. Like, I'm not saying just quit all those things and leave, but man, the coaching is for me, the thing that gets me through my day to day and keeps me on a path to success and like just happiness and fulfillment.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's so much I want to say in response to all of that. But yes, like coaching really is it's about learning about the human mind, right? It's skills for a human mind. And for me, like that was such a revelation about being coached, was that I felt like it no longer mattered anymore if I fit into a box or a diagnosis or any of those things, right? I was like, this is just like you say, Meagan, like it's practical work on understanding how to be the watcher of our human brains and how to realize that we can change that story if we choose to, right? And, I think we've lost so much of our power in medicine, and I'm getting the sense, Scott, that this is the same in the veterinary community as well, that we have lost so much of our power because we have given up so much to our training and to structures and to administration and to people who don't know a thing about what it's like to do the jobs that we do, right? And these are the things that come up time and time again in all the research on why this is happening in our communities, right? I mean, I want to say very briefly that professionals are not by any means the only people who are at risk of suicide, right? There are many other groups who deal with much more challenging things, in Canada, our First Nations populations, LGBTQ populations, right? And I don't want to take away from anybody's story when it comes to this topic, but we're focusing on professionals here tonight because we're focusing on the audiences that we're connecting with right now, and we're focusing on our own stories. But it is certainly not to take away from or to not acknowledge the stories of others who have and who are suffering. But so much of the data points to, I mean, in the US, this is such a profound statistic for me. In the US, the equivalent of one medical school graduating class of physicians dies by suicide every year. That means like one additional medical school has to operate to replace those that are lost doing this job. Like that is such a profound and sad statistic to me, really, right? And the thing is that all of the studies report time and time again that yes, untreated mental health conditions is a huge part of this, right? But part of the reason why we don't get treated and we don't get help is because of the stigma that we fear and that we face, and that shame and that isolation, and the poor ability to recognize these things in ourselves, right? And in each other. And it floors me, Scott, when I look at, like, to me, it's very different, the experience that you had, right? I never could have stood up in the room, in the meeting I was in, the night that I sat in this office and I contemplated suicide. I never could have stood up in the physician meeting that I was in and shared that was where I was at with my colleagues. I never could have. My colleagues, very few of them even know I'm sitting here in this office doing this talk today, right? I still live most of my journey in isolation from the people that really I should be the closest with, right? But this is pervasive in our profession, and we're all really good at making it look like everything is really good, right? Because we have been trained to do this. Just to share one more Glennon quote, I heard this one today. Our minds are polluted by our training. And now when she's speaking about that, she's speaking about it with the lens of women being trained to fit into, stereotypes, right? But I think about this, when I think about this in terms of our profession, our minds are polluted by our training. I think about the way the stories we hand down from generation to generation in medicine. This is the way it is. This is how it has to be. It's wrong to feel that way. It's wrong to act like that. It's all because of the establishment. It's all because of the structure. It's all because of the system. And it is so disempowering. Why are we still holding on to this story? We lose so much of our power to live out our own lives in that authentic way when we give all our power up to all of these things, right? Yes, there are changes. We absolutely need to humanize medical education and working conditions and these kinds of things, right? Those are part of the solution for sure. But if we put all of our focus on changing external things, one, it feels impossible, right? Because they're so big, they're so broad. But two, we forget that so much can change on the individual level, and so much can change if we all connect on the individual level, right? And we reach more people by doing what we're doing right here and having these conversations, and how empowering it can be when we learn how to do this work ourselves. So for me, it was very cool to start getting into this coaching world, because I realized that I don't have to feel that stigma of fitting into some box. Like, I just have a human brain, and I just need to understand the thought errors and the little mistakes my human brain makes and the places where it gets hung up. And as I started to learn to do that for myself, I realized I could teach other people to do this stuff. And it's come full circle for me. Jess Schaefer, who Meagan talked about, has been very instrumental in my journey of this coming full circle and becoming a coach myself. And it is just like so cool how we've all been connected in this journey, and how this is like created something for somebody else. Scott, I wanted to ask you, because it's fascinating to me when I listen to you talk about what helped you in your journey. It is so similar to what helped Meagan and I in terms of the things that we came to understand and we came to realize. But for you, it wasn't through formal coaching, but you have this really cool way of looking at things. So would you mind to share that with us right now?
Yeah. So yeah, it was, I do have a very close friend who had mentioned the coaching thing, and I kind of it never really came to be for me. And I ended up, I kind of, in those days after that happened, I really leaned in, and I just wanted to feel everything. And I've read about your journaling and wanting to write everything down. And I didn't necessarily do that, but I wrote emails. I wrote emails to those people who were there that day, and they were very raw, and they were just what I was feeling, and I just let it happen. And a couple of things happened. I reached out to all the people I knew who were doing work in the veterinary field on mental health stuff, and a few of them were just absolutely instrumental in helping me in those days. We're hoping to do some things in the veterinary world that will kind of formalize some help for this, and we hope that we can do that at some point. But that was amazing. And then I just started reading a lot, and I was looking for inspiration, and I have this one friend, and she is watching here, and she has texted me every single day since that day in that room. And all the money in the world can't buy you something like that, and what that's meant to me. And she sent me books, and she sent me this one quote of a book, and I got it immediately, and it was a book called The Second Mountain by David Brooks. And the premise of the book, just in really short, the first 5 chapters of that book are the most profound things I've ever read for this part of my life. And it talks about two mountains in life. The first mountain is a mountain of success. It is the one that we are expected to climb and what society thinks we're supposed to do. So it is the, go out, get a good job, get an education, get a good job, get married, have kids, do all that stuff. And what its premise is that we reach the top of that and we get there and we go, yeah, this really isn't what we thought it would be. And you've heard that from all of us already tonight. And what it talks about is this second mountain. And so I just see someone asking about the book, and it's called The Second Mountain by David Brooks. And the second mountain is one about devoting yourself to a cause. And it is a mountain that you don't ever conquer. And but it's something that you dedicate yourself to. And the first mountain is about the idealistic things, money, success, padding your resume, those types of things. The second mountain is one about connection and love and purpose and finding joy in life. And, for a long time, I had found that there are people in my life that I looked at and I'm like, I don't know why I find you so fascinating and so amazing. And when I read this, it had articulated it so well for me that these people were on the second mountain. They were people who had, they weren't doing what they were doing for money. They weren't doing it for fame. They weren't doing it. They were doing it because they had found greater purpose in what they were doing. And there was a particular thing that actually came from one of his previous books called The Road to Character, but he mentions it many times throughout this book. And what I struggled with was I had made so many commitments in my life. I was on councils all over the place. I'd spread myself so thin that I had started looking at those things as obligations and commitments and things that I didn't want to do anymore, as opposed to the real reason I got in them in the first place were those second mountain reasons. They were reasons of purpose and fulfillment, but they didn't feel like that anymore. And I was looking at it a different way because I was completely overwhelmed. And so one of the things that I have used every single day since is whenever I make a decision, he talks about there being two types of traits in life. There are resume traits and there are eulogy traits. And so resume traits, and there's a time in life for each of them. And sometimes it's both, right? I mean, for me, it's being a veterinarian. That's both on, that's a resume thing and something that, I want to be remembered for. And for you guys, it's being a doctor and a healer. And for all of us, it's being a healer. And, when I read that, it was just so profound. And I looked at my life and I said, why am I doing each one of these things that I'm doing? Is it to pad my resume? And does that sound super cool and awesome? Or is it because it's something that I really want to, it gives me purpose and it's something that I want to be remembered for when this is all over? And it was so incredibly liberating. And and I actually didn't drop things. I refound those eulogy reasons that I was doing it. The second mountain reasons that I was doing it. And now when any new decision comes of do I want to do that or not, that is the immediate question I ask myself. Is this going to be something that is provides purpose and meaning in my life and is part of what I want to be remembered for? Or is this something that just sounds super cool and so I feel obligated to do it because someone asked me to, and it kind of sounds cool, so I should do it. And it's so simple and it has been so profound.
Love that. I use this saying, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. And I think it's a really, really good one to apply to our lives, right? Because we so often go into these professions with these people pleasing kind of hearts, right? And then we get to this point where we have nothing left to give to anyone or anything, let alone ourselves, right? And yeah, I think that is really a beautiful way of putting it. So I'm being cognizant of time. We've been on here for a long time. Thank you for everybody who has stuck with us. And we do see your comments. There are many, many beautiful comments here, and they're much appreciated. Please do feel free if you have questions or if you would like to engage in this conversation more with us, we can come back and we can comment on these things afterwards. So please do feel free to write stuff here. I know we haven't had a lot of time to do this terribly interactive tonight. I would just like to briefly finish this out with a little bit of discussion on what we think. Like, let's give some practical tips that we can each do on an individual level. Let's give some tips to someone who might be suffering, who might be feeling the way we were, last fall. Like, let's give some glimmer of hope for the people who are there right now who might be seeing this. Anybody want to start? I can certainly start. But...
I can start.
Yeah.
My thought for everyone is that it's really easy to hear this stuff and think that they're not talking about me. But this, right? Like, you're listening and you hear your brain go, but XYZ, fill in the blank. But, and that is just your brain's way of protecting you. And you can say, hi, brain, thank you for protecting me for 35, 45, 55 years of my life. Thank you for watching out for me. Thank you for making sure I don't go make horrible decisions. But now I'm going to take charge. Bye, little gremlin on the shoulder. I don't need that anymore. I decide that this is for me, like for me. And I'm a human worth time, and I'm a human worth commitment, and I deserve laughter, and I deserve to live, and I deserve happiness, and I deserve success on my terms. And this isn't woo-woo, that this is very powerful and that it is for everyone. So when you hear your brain saying, but it's not going to work for me, I'm too far gone, I'm different, I'm not good enough, I'm a drama queen, I don't really have anybody who cares about me. Like, those thoughts exist in your mind for real, and they're valid, and they have probably protected you for a long time, but you don't need them anymore. And you can now make the decision to pivot, and you can choose to be open with others, and you can choose to seek help. And there are so many people ready and willing to help, because in our hearts, we're all good people. We're all good people. There are very few bad people in the world. Most people are going to help you, love you, guide you, and keep you, and want to be there for you. And so that's what I would end with, is just that hope and reassurance that we're all one. I really believe we're all interconnected, that what happens to me in my heart happens to you in your heart. And I have to believe that there's no other way that I would be sitting here and chatting with two people from Canada, and, if there wasn't a thread that connected us all, and that we all really do care about each other. And so hope is there for you.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in on that too, and because there's so much there that you just said that is exactly how I feel, and I do think it's fair to point out that I haven't seen you in so long, and Meagan, you and I had never met before 10 minutes before we did this thing tonight, so this is pretty cool. And my point on that would be that Anna, you asked me that question before. What do I wish I had known then that I know now? And when I sat down and I thought about it, I came to the same conclusion. What Meagan just said is that if you told me all these things that you just said, Meagan, last year, I would have said to you, yeah, that's great that you're sharing this, but that's not me. And I wouldn't have listened. I wouldn't have at the time, but I would have thought about it. I would have taken it in, and it would have been there. there were enough people who told me some stories, and we kind of tiptoed into these things. And what I knew, and what I knew then, and I know now, and what I want everybody else to know is that I knew in that moment that all those people in that room cared deeply for me. I knew that I had so many people elsewhere that cared about me, and that I knew that if I did this, it didn't solve anything. It transferred pain. It didn't heal it. And it transferred to those people that I actually really, really cared about. And so the thing is you might keep saying, like, this is not me. But a time will come where you come to that conclusion, like Meagan said, that I don't need those thoughts anymore. And when you do, it's going to be when it's so painful that you're about to make a decision on whether you continue with this. You stand up and fight, and you ask for the help, and you do that moment of strength where you ask someone for help instead of taking the other option, which is taking your own life. And when you get there, knowing that there are people who have been there, knowing that there are people who have overcome that, knowing that people want to help you, knowing that I'm here, these guys are here, we are all here, and we will drop what we're doing to help you in that moment, because that's what people did for me. And we are healers, and we want to help each other, and at the end of the day, we all want to help. And so you may get there, and when you get there, know those things, because you may still be in a position right now where you aren't hearing it. And those people, I have so many of them who have helped me, and I wouldn't be here if it weren't for them. And I was ready and willing to ask for that help, and know that you can.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you to you both. It's been amazing connecting with you. Thank you to everybody who's stuck in here with us. We really appreciate you. Feel free to share this, to write #live, to give lots of hearts. All of those things are going to mean that more people will see this going forward, because this is still going to continue to exist even beyond the video. I mean, beyond the talk that we're having right now. We really have talked about so many of the things that I had on my list of things that I wanted to bring to talk about tonight. I just want to add this. You are never stuck. You are never, ever, ever stuck. There aren't that many different problems of the human condition that exist. They're all our own little version of the story. But as you've seen tonight, right, we were all living very parallel lives, dealing with very similar problems with their own little flavor of the story, right? And there aren't that many different problems, and somebody has figured out a way to solve all of them, and somebody has lived through them before and survived. And so try to remember, when you feel like you're alone and that there is no solution, that you're never, ever, ever, ever stuck. The biggest enemy that we fight the vast majority of the time is our own brain. And I think that all three of us have lived that and walked through that and experienced that and know that profoundly, and that is where we have found our healing. So I would like to leave everybody who's been here with us tonight with a task. I want you to think about your truest, most perfect version of your story, right? The story that you want to tell, your eulogy. I want you to think about it. I want you to dream about it. I want you to write it down. And then I want you to take some step tomorrow to be that story, to become that story. And I think that we have, when as a mom, I look at my young daughter and I realize, like, anything in the world, like, sometimes she just blows me away with her imagination and what she can conceive of and what she can imagine with the simplest of objects, And I think, like, we are all still that person. We're all still that human. But so much of that has been, like, contained into this tiny little box. Like, I think when we do this work, we like open the lid on that box, and some like true essence of us inside us, like it just starts to come out and fill us again, right? And it's like we're becoming human again. And to me, like that is why my life is full and beautiful and amazing now. It's not because I don't ever have pain and I don't ever have suffering. I fully accept those are going to be part of my human experience on this earth. And in knowing that, I don't have to try to hide from them. I don't have to change them. I can feel sad when I feel sad, and I can feel pure and real joy now too, because I'm not trying to put a lid on it all. I'm not trying to hold the beach ball under the water anymore. And it has been such a profound transformation for me that I have felt utterly compelled to teach this to other people. And this is why I'm here now doing this. This is what has brought all of this full circle for all of us tonight. This is why we're all connecting with you guys. And it is amazing. And it is really, you know, for me, like I feel like I am living that second peak that Scott talks about right now. Like when you talk about that, I'm like, I am on my second peak. And it makes so much sense to me why I feel so much more fulfilled in doing that. And very little in the external world in my life changed, but so much changed within me. And it's so profound. And I think that's the same for all of us. And I just want to offer that to people who are suffering, because we so often think it's like something else out there has to change. And it's so disempowering. But if we think about what we want, what is our truest, our most perfect story that we can tell for our lives, and we dream it and we write it, then we can start to step into it and we can start to live it. Any final thoughts from you, Meagan or Scott? Scott's got the thumbs up going.
I couldn't have said that better myself. I had one quote that I had heard from Seth Godin, who's a .com guy, and he had written, what are you stressed about today? Will it matter a year from now? And then the second part, which I think is the most profound part that goes along with what you just said, Anna, is, what could you do today that would matter in a year from now? And, I think that what you're talking about in challenging everybody to do tomorrow is something that could matter in a year from now. And let's focus on that rather than the stress of whatever it's going to be tomorrow that may not matter in a year.
I totally agree. And tonight is a full moon, and it's the last super moon of 2020. And it's a great night, whether you believe in whatever, all that stuff, whatever. It's always a great night. So why not now? Why not tonight? Why not tonight? Like to write down that goal and like release old thoughts and let old stuff go and let the old die and let the new come. I mean, it's no day but today, if you like Les Mis. And, it doesn't have to be like the best thing you've ever done and like perfect. Done is better than perfect is from all of these teachers, all these great teachers. And so like one little thing, yes, one step, one little thing that you could do today that you could release from the old and start with the new, that tomorrow you would wake up in the morning and just feel so good that you did that one thing. I think that can make all the difference. Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you to everybody who has written comments to us. Scott, you got a lot of love on here. We've got a lot to live up to here. But listen, it has been so great. Thank you to you both. The profound impact that you have had on me is just extraordinary. And I know that goes both ways. And without further ado, I'm going to wrap this up because we've been at this for a while and I'm sure everybody has other things they need to do. But yeah, please do share far and wide or tag people or whatever it is. If you resonate with something here, I'm sure somebody else will. And we're counting on all of you guys to reach out to your people and just spread the message and give some hope. So take care, everybody. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.